Hey guys, so I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. I know my head looks a little weird, my hair looks a little funny because I don't want it to get cut off, so I realized that I have a white headset which is going to cut my head off, and it was very annoying when I watched the last video that I recorded. So, in my quest to find different stuff and in my quest to change my channel a little, and make it about true crime, not just about making a murderer, and Chris Watts, which I'm going to do a video on as well. Just to let you guys know, I'm still doing a live tonight at 9 o'clock, so this video is just like an added extra bonus. So, in my quest to do this, I ended up thinking, who do I know personally that's ever been wrongly convicted or had a false confession? And I remember that there was this huge case. I'm not even sure how I forgot in the first place, but there was this huge case when I was growing up. You may have heard of him by the name of Martin Tankleff. Marty was a typical 17-year-old, very, very rich kid. His parents owned a bagel store that we all used to hang out at, and it was in a shopping center that we all used to hang out at. And any of my personal friends that are watching this video know exactly what I'm talking about. And we all knew that he didn't do it. It just, I mean, this was a really rich kid. There is no, I mean, he would have made more money with his parents alive than, I mean, it was just a big nightmare. But the thing about it was his parents weren't just killed, they were executed. I mean, it was bad. And there was just no way this 17-year-old kid did it. It was a false confession. He falsely confessed. From what I remember him telling us or telling me is that like they had him interrogated for like 48 or 72 hours or something. They wouldn't feed him, they wouldn't give him drinks, and this is Suffolk County Police, the highest paid police force in the entire world. I mean, I know your regular street cop in Suffolk County is making about 120,000 a year as compared to New York City where they make like $30,000 a year. I mean, everybody wants to be a Suffolk County cop because they are making bank. But needless to say, they had him like locked up for like 72 hours. They wouldn't feed him, they wouldn't give him drinks, they wouldn't let him sleep. I mean, they were not giving up until he confessed to murdering his parents, and finally he did. That kept him in prison for 17 years. And I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with New York State prisons. They're no joke. I mean, they're comparable to like St. Quentin. You have places like Attica, Rikers Island. I mean, these max security prisons are serious. Don't compare to other places in max securities in Alabama or max securities in, I mean, they are for real. Anyway, moving on. Fluffernutter Butter wants to go out, and he's gonna annoy me this whole video. I wish I had a pause button on OBS, but I don't, so you may have to hear him for a little while. So needless to say, I contacted Marty. I'm still Facebook friends with him. I haven't spoken to him in a while, but I'm still Facebook friends with him, and I have spoken to him, like we all knew each other when we were young. So hopefully he'll get back to me and agree to do an interview with me. But what makes his story so so unbelievably remarkable, is the fact that he's now an attorney for New York State. He works with, trying to free the innocent. He works with the Innocent Project of New York. He's a diehard advocate, obviously, for, people that make false confessions. I know Laura, Brendan's attorney, had done stuff with him, but if you haven't checked out his story, you should. His name is Martin Tankleff. Absolutely inspirational story. So until he gets back to me, I'll let you guys know. Hopefully he's watching, but I'll let you guys know for the future if he agrees to do this, interview with me for the show. But in my quest for, reaching out to him yesterday, I came across on his Facebook another exoneree that he recently helped get out after 27 years. And this guy's story was so unbelievably touching. I wanted to share it. And I spent hours yesterday doing a PowerPoint about it with showing all of his artwork. I really hope I don't get in trouble for redoing his artwork. So let me state that throughout the PowerPoint, there is a link. It's valentinodixon.com. I took his story, I made it into a PowerPoint showing his amazing artwork. Once I get into the PowerPoint, I kind of repeat that, but so be it. It's absolutely unbelievable. I mean, this man made these paintings in a 4x8 jail cell over 27 years, and his artwork just speaks for itself. So without further ado, let me get into the story so you guys can see exactly what I see. His name is Valentino Dixon. I'm calling it Making an Exoneree only because I didn't make that title, but I'm doing it because that is what Georgetown University named the class in order to get him out. And you're going to understand all that by the end of this presentation. And I said this incredible story of never giving up hope. So as I already said, all the artwork that you're going to see is like every single picture on here is one that he drew from prison. You can buy all of his artwork at valentinodixon.com. Every picture is $99 except for the ones that have 4, which you'll see later on in the presentation. Those are 239 or 299. But again, you can see it all just going to valentinodixon.com. It just blows my mind that he did this stuff with wood pencils and in a jail cell. It's crazy to me, and you'll see what I mean as we go on. What he states is because the law states that the prosecution has a duty and an obligation to seek the truth, not just a conviction. I thought that quote was awesome to open this up with because he's right. And I find so many similarities to the railroading that happened to Stephen and Brendan and the false confession and how prosecutions they don't care about the truth. They just want to convict. So he says he was hanging out at a fast food restaurant. Now, journalist Max Adler, which you're going to see how he ties in at the end of the presentation, says there were about 70 teenagers at the restaurant that night. Popular hangout spot. Kind of reminded me of the shopping center we all used to hang out at. There was a fist fight that turned into a gunfight. Shots rang out. Dixon jumped in his car and pulled away. He fled. Didn't want to have anything to do with this, Adler says. There were 4 people shot. One of them was a teenager by the name of Toriano Jackson. He ended up dying. It can happen to you. It can happen to a loved one. It can happen to a family member. This is why it's so serious. And what he's talking about is a false confession or falsely being accused of something that you didn't do. So the investigation started is he left the scene, then shortly he was pulled over. Police interrogated him. They asked him, were you at the scene? Next thing you know, I'm being charged of murder, just because I said I was there. He could not believe what he was hearing, but he felt like, all right, you know what? Eyewitnesses are going to clear me of this. It's all good. Dozens of witnesses, not one person had the same story. According to Adler, who spent years following this, who spent tons of time reading through pages and pages and pages of files, he said eyewitnesses insisted that Dixon had not committed the crime. And 2 days later, after the shooting, Lamar Scott confessed to the murder. But the prosecution didn't care. They still went after Valentino Dixon. And what he suggests is that nobody wanted to admit that a mistake was made. Came down to embarrassment, came down to egos. The culture was that, well, we're not going to say that we made a mistake here. That sounds an awful lot like Colburn in Stephen's first trial. Anybody that knows me knows that I was never capable of what they accused me of, and that's what hurt me to the core. Like, why would you accuse me of this? And then when you realize that I didn't do it, why would you ignore that mistake? And I think that's one of the things that bother us about Avery is admit you made the mistake and move on. Don't try to cover it up by accusing him of something else. It's the worst thing in the world that you can blame a person for is murder. I don't know if murder or rape is worse, but it doesn't get any worse than that. Gandhi once said, be the change you want to see in the world. And I couldn't agree with that more. And that's what we have to do as sleuths, as online detectives, whatever you want to call us. We have to be that change. We have to show the world that this stuff needs to change. Like, we can't keep living like this. So then the trial comes. And before I even get into that, I mean, look at the detail in this. This is in jail with pencils, wood pencils. That is insane. I mean, I was so in awe by this guy's artwork. And his artwork is what eventually what got him free. So the case went to trial in 92. He hoped that the discovery process would clear his name, but next thing you know, prosecutors charging two of the witnesses of perjury before trial. So for stating that he didn't commit the crime, they charged them with perjury. I've never known anybody to charge him with perjury. And he had some bullshit criminal record. Like, you find out that, he was a cocaine dealer, he carried a gun. Like, he wasn't the, most perfect angel, but they were railroading him just for having probably one for being black. And I'm not one to say that, that's why they go after them. But it's a very good possibility because he was black. It didn't matter that the other black man killed him. Maybe they were after him for some other reason. Maybe they just didn't like his clothes. I mean, it's so horrendous. So then this other witness was afraid of coming forward. Instead of just kind of letting the jury have all the facts and letting them sort it out, the prosecutor very vindictively selected who would testify. And that was the only people who agreed with his version of the story. A good attorney would have been able to protect his client, but Dixon's public defender, who had only visited him once in 10 months leading up to the trial, was anything but that. So unless you guys want to hear fluffing out of bark all day, I gotta let him out. Hold up. Okay, so fluffing out is out of the room. Moving on. So the trial began. The lawyer didn't even give an opening argument. Dixon said he waived his opening argument, and then he didn't even call any witnesses, not one witness to the stand. He didn't even introduce one exhibit during trial. Jury found me guilty, give me 38 years, 38 and a half years to life. Now, when he got convicted in 1992, it's a different system than it is now in New York, because even before I left New York, now it's mandatory minimums. So there's no more like 18 to life. You get 18 years. You get 25 years. You get 50 years. And you get life. You no longer get out for early behavior. It's different than it was in 92. But in 92, we got 38 and a half years to life. So he was 21 years old. He went to Attica. Attica is one of the worst prisons in New York State. It's the infamous maximum security prison in Western New York State, which is upstate New York. For the first 7 years, he was in such a state of depression, he said, that he didn't have any drive or determination when it came to anything positive. He learned what he could about the law at the prison library. He kept a meticulous list of the mistakes that had been made in trial. I mean, when you're 21 years old, you don't know what your, lawyer did wrong. You don't know what you need to do. He filed an appeal. The same judge, when we filed a post-conviction motion, said, I received a fair trial. Who does that sound like? Adler says Valentino's family was still fighting for him. They were not going to give up. His father did all he could to take the investigation into his own hands, and attorneys would take his money and then really do nothing. It became his nightmare. And he was despondent. I mean, you can't blame him. I'd be the same way. And he quotes as well that, for the first 7 years, he was in such a state of depression. But the reason why I put this up here, this picture is the one that got him noticed by Golf Digest magazine, which is essentially what freed him. So Alan Turing had put a quote that I thought fit perfectly with this whole story, and that we can see a short distance ahead, but we can see plenty that needs to be done. To me, that I heard the quote, I thought of the quote, and I thought, you know what? That so applies to the justice system because it's so true. So Dixon drew every day. And you can find his entire story online. I just took bits and pieces from different stories to put together, one complete presentation. So in 2010, his drawings got attention of the warden. One day he says, Dixon, you think you could draw me my favorite golf course? And I said, sure, I'll draw it for you. It's no more than a landscape and a flag, so why not? Warden brought in a photo. It was Augusta. I believe it was the 12th hole. I drew it for him. He loved it. A cellmate told him he should draw some more golf courses. So his feeling was, the hell am I going to draw golf courses for? Like, what's the point? I've never even been to a golf course. So his cellmate said, because I think you do really good at it. So for whatever reason, this cellmate planted the seed of why he should draw golf courses. And Dixon said it was like strangest thing that he's ever dealt with. So another quote from that story that came to mind was, you're always trying to be normal. We will never know how amazing you can be. Because, I mean, if you think about his life and what he's endured for however amount of years when he started, drawing golf courses, it's Maya Angelou just came to mind with an inspiring quote because, he was so down on his luck and so dead on his luck. And, now he's got inspiration. And when you're doing 38 years to life, you need inspiration in jail just to survive every day. I can't even comprehend 27 years. Same thing with Steven. I can't even comprehend 27 years. So how this all started was he started reading columns with Max Adler. Max Adler is a co-author or has a co-author of Monthly Golf Digest column. So they chronicle the ways that people use the game to get through a hard thing that they were going through in their life. Like why golfers, what gets through golf. And any golfers out there, I'm sure have read this article. Now, Dixon on the flip. Whoop, okay. Dixon on the flip side, sorry about my technical difficulties and dog difficulties, but it's too long of a video to keep redoing, so we're just going to deal with it. Um, Chronicle the ways that people use the game, and Dixon says he had friends that committed suicide in prison. You could be strong today, and tomorrow it can be like, you know what, I got 20 years and I'm ending this. I would. I can't do any more time. And I felt like at that point I was on borrowed time and golf was saving my life. Then one day in 2011, now remember he's been in there since 92. Max Adler went to his office at Golf Digest, and in his inbox was this letter from Dixon, and it had a picture in it. I'm not going to read you verbatim, but it had a picture in it, and in that picture was a golf course. And he said the tranquil image of grass skies and tree and water. He said it was as far away from your cell as one could possibly get. So Martin Luther King, I didn't want to change the words of such a great quote, but if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving. And my feeling is if you change moving to believing, you just have to keep believing. So my advice to Stephen and Brendan is just keep believing. Keep believing and hope. Keep believing that the truth will come out because eventually it just has to. It's gonna happen eventually. You guys did not commit this horrific murder. So Dixon in 2012 invited Adler to come see him, and he did. And Adler said he went in there with some serious doubts. He didn't know what was going to come of it, and he ended up pouring over thousands upon thousands of legal documents, and then the story appeared in Golf Digest. It was a first piece written by Valentino, ghost written by Adler, which he explained a peace and tranquility that he found in the look of the sport. And then attached to that was a much longer piece investigating his case and showed that it was pretty clear instance of local officials seizing a moment to railroad a young guy with a criminal background into a prison for a crime he didn't commit. Major news outlets became interested. I mean, that's the thing. When you have someone like Adler, do a worldwide story like this with, reputable people, people are going to notice. And it noticed Georgetown government and law professor Mark Howard. He noticed. That's also who Martin Tankleff is a professor for them as well as being an attorney. In January of 18, Howard presented Dixon's case at Georgetown in a class called Making an Exoneree. 3 undergrad students definitively went to work. And on September 19th of 2018, an exoneree was made. Valentino Dixon got out, got his first real day in court. He walked out that day. He walked in that day in shackles and literally walked out a free man. It's amazing. It took 27 years. Like it's still mind-blowing to me. So, I mean, the moral of this whole presentation was we need change in this justice system. No one person can do it alone, but collectively we can do it together. False confessions. I mean, I understand that our system gets it right 95% of the time. But when 3 to 5% of prisoners are innocent, and you have someone like this with a talent like this that completely was wasted because, he got in trouble when he was young or he had a criminal record, or Martin Tankleff was, who knows what he could have been. He may have still been a lawyer. But the fact that these people, so many false convictions, this is what we need to focus on because this is what needs to change. And, you hear story after story after story that sounds like the same story, but it's not. It's all different states. Now, Marty got a couple of $1 million. I don't know if it was 3 million or 8 million from New York State, but I can assure you, if he's if he hadn't have been blamed in the first place, that $8 million is nothing compared to what his parents would have left. I mean, he was that rich. So the fact that he still went to be an attorney, he does everything that you could. That's what I see Valentino. I don't see Marty giving up fighting for Valentino. Valentino deserves everything he gets. He should open up an art museum with all of his art, and I wish him the absolute best. I'm going to try to reach out to him. Since it's new, maybe I can get an interview with him as well, but his story is so inspiring to me. I just had to do a presentation on it. So that was all I have. Don't forget, we're still doing a live tonight at 9. I got to take my kids, do a little Black Friday shopping. Not much, but a little. My son has to go to GameStop. But I want to let you guys know that I totally lost my train of thought. I'm sorry for my little beep in between. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure that I will see you guys tonight at 9. And I hope you guys have a great day. And again, I hope you had a great turkey day and break out the Christmas trees this now. All right. Have a wonderful night, guys.